Hello guys, today we've seen resignation of Speaker of Canadian Parliament, Anthony Rota. So it was result of inviting in Canadian Parliament for honoring the veteran of the Second World War, as they thinking who fight against Russians, but appears this guy was fighting not against Russians, he was fighting against allies for Nazi Germany. Ironically, he was fighting against Canada as part of Allied forces too. All last days on Canadian state media, in society, it was one big question. Why? Why happen like this? I heard lots of opinions on this point, but I didn't hear the main cause of this invitation, main cause of this scandal. Last years, especially when Russia started its special military operation in Ukraine, Canadian state propaganda, Canadian media, Canadian politicians, they working very hard to create image of current Ukrainian regime as something bright, honest, democratic, liberal, progressive. But in reality, we see the guy who fight against Allied for Nazi Germany in Canadian Parliament. He was invited when Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky gave a speech about Russian aggression. Before President Zelensky, Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, gave speech too. He blamed Russia with breaking the law, breaking the rules, with atrocities, with violent crimes, killing civilians, stealing kids, everything he can imagine. But why this guy was invited, this Yaroslav Hunka was invited in Canadian Parliament? Canadian propaganda, as I told before, create the image of Ukraine as something perfect. Not perfect, but very positive. And Canadian politicians, I think they start believing in this image of Ukraine created by their own propaganda. Not only Canadian state propaganda, but Western state propaganda. And I think these guys in Canadian politics, they think anybody who wear vyshivanka, this traditional Ukrainian shirt, who waving Ukrainian flag, who shouting Slava Ukraini, he is automatically good guy who share Canadian value, Western values, democratic values, liberal values, but reality is a little bit, or maybe not a little bit, different. Situation in Ukraine is following. If this guy, Yaroslav Hunka, was invited to Ukrainian Parliament, he would get the same ovation, same applause, but nobody after that, even if they know that he was the member of Nazi division, SS division, Galicia, nobody cared about it, because by name of those guys who seem like fighters for Ukrainian independence, called streets in Ukraine. There are monuments in their honor. And just think about one thing. Why we still don't see any reaction from Ukrainian officials about this situation. I checked Ukrainian media and nothing about this scandal. It's not only Canadian scandal, it's scandal of the world, I would say. It's like this scandal get out of the Canada, and in lots of countries speak about it. We hear reaction from Poland, from Russia, from United States, from other countries, but we hear nothing about it from Ukraine. Why? Because they have nothing to say. Because this guy is hero for them. At least he is hero for current Ukrainian regime. The ideology of current Ukrainian regime is nationalism. It's not democracy. It's not Western values, but nationalism. For outside usage, for outside image, of course, they portray themselves like lovers of democratic values, of Western values, and at the same time the Western propaganda create the same image. But for internal usage, it's pretty nationalistic regime who oppress other opinions. Yes, there are some different opinions over there, but they have to be in this, nationalistic narrative. And if Canada support that regime, they have to understand what they really support. Creation of this image that contradict with reality can cause such scandals that happened right now. Because, of course, the Ukrainian delegation to Canada with Zelensky, of course, it was consultations about procedure on this parliament meeting. Of course, all persons who gonna be honored over there, they was discussed before. Of course, they 100% knew about it. I don't know about Canadian side. Maybe they knew too, but it's something. I think the Canadian side, they felt victim of their own propaganda about Ukrainian regime. I understand that when Canadians suffer from so many crises here, affordability crisis, house crisis, they people, they trying to find something to put on the table. They struggling to find the roof over their head. At the same time, Canada sending billions to support Ukrainian regime. Of course, they have to create the image of this regime like something similar to political system as we see here in Canada. But it's different. It's why this Ukrainian society here, I don't know where they found this guy, or maybe Ukrainian society offered this guy to be honored, or this Speaker of the Parliament the founded in this environment of Ukrainian nationalists here. So many of them, they left Europe after German losing the war, and they knew that they're gonna be persecuted by Soviets. They're gonna be persecuted by Soviets for war crimes committed on the ground. But as we see, they can live here in Canada without any problems. Nobody persecute them. They naturalized here, getting Canadian citizenship, and finally even honored in Canadian Parliament. Just think about it. In Ukraine, the situation is different. That Canadian propaganda portrays Ukrainian regime. This is why this scandal happens. They didn't find the guy in Ukrainian society who was fighting with the Nazi, against Nazi. They didn't find any Canadian who was in Canadian armed forces who fight against Nazi or Japan or I don't know. They found in Ukrainian society here this guy. The problem is then from 2014, Ukrainian government, after throwing out President Yanukovych, they took this nationalist ideology, how is basic ideology for the state. And Western, of course, they support it, because these guys, they fighting against Soviet Union and right now after Russia, against Russia. Of course, it was useful for West to support this regime. I think some people here, high-ranked intelligence, they understand it. But the poor guys like this Speaker of the Parliament, he was he was brainwashed by their own propaganda. I think so. They even didn't check properly who this guy is. They just see his vyshyvanka. They see he's with Ukrainian flag. And they decided, okay, this good guy, he shares our values. We can invite him and honor him. But situation is a little bit different. if Canada continue have a deal with this regime, this situation can happen again. Just look how Russia portrayed in Canadian media, state media, and how Ukraine seen in Canadian media. What we hear about Russia right now, it's everything is bad. But what we hear about Ukraine, it's everything, almost everything good. They are brave, they have the courage, they fighting for their own independence, they are very good people. What we hear about Russians, they are rapists, they are killers, they are, I don't know, invaders, they steal the toilets, we hear about it. But reality is a little bit different. If you base your ideology on the propaganda, it's this situation gonna be happen again and again. Okay guys, see you later.